Hey, welcome you guys. Today I'm going to show you how to make a fake Butterfinger. I think this is going to be a really simple one. We don't need too many supplies for it, so let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to use my Crayola air dry clay for this one. So just condition your clay a little bit. And then I'm going to roll this out into a log. Now this one is flat on the bottom, and then it's kind of like a rounded shape on the top. So I'm just taking my fingers and kind of pressing the sides toward the bottom. Then that way we can get that nice flat edge, and then the top will be kind of rounded. And then I want to make sure that the edge is nice and flat. I'm just going to press it against my surface pretty lightly. I don't want it to like completely smush. I just want the edge to straighten. And then the ends are straight across. So I'm just going to cut a little bit off using my clay blade. And I just kind of cut it so that it's about the length of what the normal candy bar would be. You can kind of eyeball it, or if you want to get technical, just get yourself a Butterfinger for research purposes and you can measure it. So then I'm just going to kind of press this down because the end is kind of like thinned out. On the real candy bar. So I'm going to do that on both ends. So it kind of like slopes down here to the bottom where it goes more flat. Now the chocolate on top has almost like a wavy texture to it. So what I'm going to do is take the end of a large paintbrush and I'm going to make the texture that way. You could also do this with a popsicle stick if you don't have a large paintbrush, or you can even try a smaller paintbrush. So I'm just going to kind of make some indentations with this, and then I'll work on them to get them perfected after. The indentation part is bigger than the part that sticks up. So you just want kind of like little sections that are sticking up, and then the indentation should be the majority of it. And now I'm just going to take my fingers and kind of work this around a little bit and get it looking more realistic. I don't want these like sharp edges, so I'm just going to kind of smooth those down with my fingers and shape it up. It'll definitely help if you have either a picture of a Butterfinger or an actual Butterfinger that you can look at, so that you can kind of see what it looks like in real life and make sure that yours is on the right track. I'm kind of like pinching those parts that are raised and just bending them around a little bit so they're not so straight across. Now, of course, I want to show the inside of this because that's what makes it look so cool. So I'm going to take my clay blade and just cut it in half. You could also do it as if it has a bite out of it, whatever you want yours to look like. Okay, so for the inside part, I'm just going to take a toothpick and I'm going to make a very thin line. The chocolate on this Butterfinger is very thin, so I'm just going to make a really thin line around the outside. And then this can kind of mark where I'm going to make the rest of the inside of this. And then the inside is kind of like striated. So I'm just going to make some lines with my toothpick. And then I also want to kind of pull out on them. I want them to have a little bit like crumbly looking texture because, you know, Butterfinger has that crumbly texture to it. And when you bite into it, it also doesn't just break off perfectly straight either. So some of it might be sticking out more than other parts. So I'm going to kind of dig out some of it to make it so that it's kind of like broken off and has different levels. Hopefully that makes sense. If not, like I said, grab yourself a Butterfinger and bite into it or break a piece off and you'll see what I'm talking about. So just make sure you have those nice striations and crumbly texture. You can even put some crumbles, you know, if you want to grab some from inside and put them like toward the outer edges. So on the second half, because on this one I made this part indented, so that would mean the top and the bottom part would be indented on this one. So I'm just going to dig out some at the top and the bottom because I want this to look like it was really broken in half. Then just make sure that the shape is how you want it to be. And then we need to let this dry overnight so that we can paint it. Okay, so let's finish up our Butterfinger. So for the inside part, I am going to start with some classic caramel, and then I'm going to add a little bit of pumpkin orange. Just a drop to start, and then we'll see what it looks like and go from there. And then I'm going to add 1 drop of yellow to this too. And just a little, 1 more drop of orange. So I started painting, and when you put it on the air dry clay, it changes colors a little bit and gets kind of darker. So I'm adding a couple more drops of yellow to change the color because this is not looking right on the clay. So let's try that one on this other piece and see how that looks. Much better. Okay, so we want to make sure we get in the crevices so that there's color in there, but we don't want so much paint that it fills in the lines and the crumbly texture. So just make sure you don't have too much paint. And I'm not really worried about getting on the outside part because we're going to go around that with the small brush for the chocolate. So you can be messy with this part. And now for the chocolate, I'm going to do melted chocolate. And the chocolate on a Butterfinger is a little bit lighter color, so I'm going to add some classic caramel to this to lighten it up just a little bit. Also keep in mind that it turns out a little darker on the air dry clay, so we want to make sure that it's light enough so that it looks like the real thing. And then I'm also going to add just a touch of gloss Mod Podge. So I've done some other chocolate in the past, like my Snickers bar, and that one's a little more glossy, but the Butterfinger chocolate is a little bit more on the matte side. So we're going to add a little bit, but not too much. We don't want it to be completely matte, but we don't want it to be super shiny either. So I'm adding about that much to the amount of paint I used. Okay, let's see how this is looking. Yeah, I think that'll be good. But we should paint this little section around the middle part first because we won't have anything to hold on to afterwards. So let's do that. Just very thin right around that edge where you made the mark. And you'll most likely have to do 2 coats of the chocolate. The first coat usually looks pretty streaky on this air dry clay, so I'll just have to do 2 coats. Thank you guys so much. I hope that your Butterfingers turn out amazing looking, and I will see you guys in the next video.